Okay, everyone, listen up. Here's the fucking deal. Khabib Nurmagomedov is out of his fight with Tony Ferguson at UFC 249 on April the 18th, and the only fight that I would ever want to see take its place is McGregor versus Ferguson. There's been a lot of talk recently. Maybe Gaethje will take the spot. Maybe Dustin Poirier will take the spot. Maybe Masvidal or Usman or Woodley and Covington will take the main event. The only fight I want to see Tony Ferguson have is Conor McGregor in the absence of Khabib Nurmagomedov. No one else. I don't want to see Gaethje versus Ferguson. Do you know why? Because if we get Gaethje beating Ferguson, we lose. Okay, if McGregor beats Ferguson, it's still a great thing because it's Conor McGregor. Gaethje isn't Conor McGregor. That's the only difference there. Conor McGregor versus Tony Ferguson is the fight that I would like to see on short notice. McGregor's been teasing it quite a bit. He looks like he's in 155-pound shape. He also posted some stories on his Instagram basically saying that he was showing that he was sweating in a sweatsuit while he was working out on a cycling machine, which means to me that someone's cutting a little bit of weight, perhaps. That's some interesting information. John Kavanagh as well posted a picture on his Instagram and Twitter with a notification on the April 18th date on his calendar. That's a little bit of something as well. Maybe we can tie that in. Also, McGregor also posted today that he was in shape and ready to fight, which is also quite interesting. That's the only replacement I'd ever want to see ever in my life if we can't get Ferguson versus Khabib. It sounds like Khabib's completely out of the fight because he doesn't want to fight right now. A lot of people are saying, dude, that's the situation about the coronavirus. Well, apparently that's not the situation for everyone else on the fucking card, including Khabib's cousin Islam Makhachev. However, we're talking about Ferguson versus Conor McGregor. That's the only one I want to see. Because in that case, we get the best of both worlds. We don't get a Gaethje fighting Ferguson and Ferguson's just taking on another contender. We don't get a Poirier versus Ferguson, and then if Poirier wins, we have to watch the rematch with him and Khabib, which wasn't at all competitive, but he landed one big shot. Good job, Poirier. Pulled a guillotine as well, even though he's never got a single guillotine finish in his entire career. He pulls one every single fucking fight. I have no idea why. Either way, Tony Ferguson versus Conor McGregor is what I want to see at UFC 249. If we don't see that, I don't want to see Tony Ferguson get in there with anyone else other than Khabib or Conor McGregor. And that's final. I'm not risking Tony Ferguson falling out of the Khabib Nurmagomedov fight unless the replacement to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov by winning is Conor McGregor. I don't want to see it be Justin Gaethje if he can catch Ferguson on the chin. Another thing I want to say here is, short notice means a little bit less for Conor McGregor because his only chance of beating Tony Ferguson, in my opinion, is in the first 2 rounds anyway. So I feel like short notice for Conor McGregor, maybe it'll be more embarrassing how much he gasses out, but either way, he's going to get tired. Ferguson's going to take over in the later rounds. How early is Ferguson going to be able to take over? I feel like short notice means little to nothing in terms of McGregor's chances of winning in the first and second round. Don't get me wrong. It would be better if we saw a more conditioned McGregor, a more focused McGregor, a more on-point McGregor, a more fine-tuned McGregor where his timing is down, on point. I would love to see that, but on short notice, we don't get that privilege. I think that Conor McGregor could do this. I think he could go in there and win, and I'd be willing to bet on him because I'm considering him an underdog. They haven't released any odds yet, but I would very heavily consider that Conor McGregor is an underdog. Now, they have released odds for Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson. I don't want to see that fucking fight, man. I like Justin Gaethje as much as the next man. He is not a draw. I know he's a main event fighter, but guys don't know about him, especially when you're comparing him to Conor McGregor. You know, maybe Gaethje would be a draw. If this was a completely different division and Leon Edwards or Justin Gaethje were in the same weight class, now we're talking Justin Gaethje. This is a very specific weight class that has Conor McGregor in the top 3. That's a little bit of an issue because he's always going to be the number 1 pick ahead of you. And if they do Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson and Gaethje wins, we're kind of fucked. Because now we don't get McGregor versus Khabib. Now we don't get Ferguson versus Khabib. And we get McGregor versus Ferguson now that Ferguson's coming off a loss, which makes the McGregor versus Ferguson fight even worse. Do you hear what I'm saying here? Conor McGregor's the only replacement I would ever want to see at UFC 249. And if they don't find him as a replacement, and they can't do Ferguson versus McGregor or Ferguson versus Khabib, I don't want to see Ferguson on the card. I want to see Ngannou Rozenstruik take the main event. Or Usman Masvidal. Apparently they're talking about taking the main event, even though that's never going to fucking happen, so I shouldn't have even said their fucking names. Ngannou Rozenstruik is a very good option. Let's talk about other guys that could headline. If we're not seeing Ferguson McGregor or Ferguson Khabib, I don't want Ferguson on the card. Period. I know Ferguson wants to be on the card because I know that Ferguson knows deep down in his heart that if he does do this for the UFC, he will be rewarded. I mean, Tony Ferguson is one of the highest earning guys who isn't technically a champion in the UFC. There's a reason for that. One, he keeps winning. Two, he does the UFC a lot of favours, as in taking Donald Cerrone on short notice at UFC 236 when the card was completely dead between Cejudo and Moraes. I ran out of breath, but I'm back now. I can see clearly again. I think McGregor could beat him. I really do. I've said this before. I feel like the entire situation between McGregor, Khabib and Tony Ferguson is a reverse game of rock, paper, scissors. That's all you've got to know. When you mention the three names, Khabib, McGregor, Ferguson, reverse rock, paper, scissors. That's all it is. And here's how. Tony Ferguson's the scissors. Ferguson beats Khabib, in my opinion. Khabib beats McGregor and McGregor beats Ferguson. That's how it is. Reverse rock, paper, scissors. Here's why it's reverse. Tony Ferguson is the scissors. He beats Khabib, who's the rock. Don't know if you know how to play rock, paper, scissors, but that's not quite how the game goes, which is why it's reverse rock, paper, scissors. Tony Ferguson's the scissors because he cuts and he slices, and that's what Tony Ferguson does. And Khabib is the rock because he lives on the side of a cliff. Make sense to you? Khabib is the rock who beats the paper, who's McGregor. Because McGregor's the paper, because he makes a lot of money. McGregor's the paper that beats the scissors in Tony Ferguson. That's why it's reverse rock, paper, scissors. That's how I've always seen this entire situation. I think that's how it goes. I think Khabib beats McGregor 9 times or 8 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, depending on how... I guess if McGregor went on a bit more of a streak and showed that he was back and focused, I'd give him more of a chance. I'd like to see the odds in a rematch. Maybe I'd have to take that into some consideration. How big of an underdog would McGregor be this time around? That would be somewhat interesting. Ferguson would beat Khabib, in my opinion, 7 times out of 10. And this recent pullout from Khabib Nurmagomedov has shown me that, because it has shown me that when coronavirus hits the world, Tony Ferguson wants to throw down and Khabib Nurmagomedov doesn't want to risk it. I don't know why that plays into things, but as a guy who I like to focus on guys' mental aspects of training. I like Ferguson's mental edge over Khabib Nurmagomedov. Against all odds, Ferguson wanted to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov. Against all odds, Khabib Nurmagomedov did not want to fight Tony Ferguson. That means a lot to me. It really does. I also want to talk about this. If there was going to be a McGregor versus Ferguson fight, I would pick the McGregor. Do you know why I'd pick McGregor? I don't know why I'm pronouncing a silent N before McGregor. That makes no sense why my brain would choose to do that twice in a row. But either way, Tony Ferguson has resumed sparring for the first time in many, many years for his fight with Khabib Nurmagomedov. Do you know why? Because he wants to do hard sparring so that he can get away with being on the feet with Khabib and being better than he normally is, because Khabib isn't going to pose many threats on the feet with Tony Ferguson. When you're fighting a guy like Conor McGregor and you've resumed sparring after years away from doing it, with a guy with the KO power of Conor McGregor, it's a problem to me, okay? And that's a real big factor here. Tony Ferguson has resumed sparring for the first time in years. That's big to me. You could say, oh, his stand-up's going to be way better. There's a reason why guys stop sparring. They're worried about damage to themselves. Donald Cerrone did the same thing. Look how that worked out for him versus McGregor. Tony Ferguson has now resumed sparring after a long time off of it, because he wanted to get an advantage over Khabib, who doesn't pose much of a threat on the feet. Conor McGregor does. Having a switch up like that, now that you've been through hard sparring sessions in camp for the first time in years, is going to be a big problem to me when I pick you over Conor McGregor. I will pick Conor McGregor if he takes this fight on short notice, and I will pick him to win by first round KO. There is a reality of the position that Tony Ferguson holds his chin at. And that's right up in the air, constantly. And you can get away with that against Donald Cerrone. You can. And you can land shots on Cerrone and beat him after 2 rounds of a back and forth battle that you're slightly getting the better of when the ref rings the bell and says that the fight's no longer on. Or you can have Conor McGregor go in there and finish Donald Cerrone in 40 seconds. There's a difference in power and striking there. I'm noticing this more and more. Tony Ferguson would lose to Conor McGregor. I really think so. There is also a reality to the situation. Again, I've used that phrase so much this video. Tony Ferguson is training for Khabib Nurmagomedov. His entire camp is going to be focused around wrestling. Wrestling defense. When you're training for Khabib Nurmagomedov, you will train more wrestling defense than in your entire life. You will do it more than you've done in your entire life. You're fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov, the master of takedowns. Tony Ferguson has probably spent 60% of his camp training takedown defense alone. And that's not even considering stretching or doing cardio or doing mitts. I guarantee you the vast majority of Tony Ferguson's camp has been him practicing wrestling defense. That is now all completely wasted time when you're facing a guy in Conor McGregor. How much hardcore sparring and stand-up rounds has Tony Ferguson been doing in his camp for Khabib Nurmagomedov? The stand-up isn't the issue that Tony Ferguson is worried about. Could Khabib crack Tony Ferguson and hurt him? Most likely. The stand-up is not what Khabib brings to the table. That's something that Tony Ferguson will not have been practicing in this fight camp. Conor McGregor is going to bring a level of stand-up into his fight with Tony Ferguson that Ferguson has not been preparing for however many weeks. If Ferguson does get past the second round, he will destroy Conor McGregor. I will say that before I end this video because I know that people are spamming it in the comments already. If this fight goes past 10 minutes, McGregor's dead. Okay? I just want to say that. I'm a big McGregor fan. I think he beats Ferguson, but I'm willing to admit if this fight goes past 10 minutes, or maybe even 7 minutes, McGregor is dead. I need you guys to understand that real quick. I know there's a lot of McGregor fans that have now all of a sudden switched on me. They were probably cheering me on. Yeah, MMA Guru, you tell him. Team McGregor, he'll beat Ferguson any fucking day. And now they've heard this little statement from myself. If this goes past 7 minutes, McGregor dies. And that's how it works. Okay, and Tony Ferguson may not even choose to submit Conor McGregor, which would be an easy way out for Conor McGregor. That's why I worry about this fight for him. In terms of being a moneymaker, it's kind of important that we don't see McGregor get really fucked up. And we haven't seen McGregor get really fucked up. I know Khabib did some damage, but McGregor came back, but Khabib eventually just caught him in a rear naked choke. That's not bad in the grand scheme of things. What's a really bad thing is if Ferguson plays with McGregor in the third round and completely annihilates him getting a TKO finish. Floyd Mayweather's finish over Conor McGregor was not bad in the great scheme of things. It wasn't. It was standing up. He took a lot of shots. It was somewhat of an early stoppage. There's something that you can fall back on. There's some excuses you can make. I wanted to go down and get rejuvenated. It's never a good excuse to make, but that's the excuse that Conor McGregor made. And to be honest with you, I'm glad the fight got stopped, because if Conor McGregor got KO'd stiff by Floyd Mayweather and dropped, how many memes do you see of Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather's stoppage? How many memes? How many short Instagram clips do you see of Conor McGregor dropping to the floor and getting KO'd? None, because it didn't happen. Because there was no great clip. It was Floyd Mayweather landing a lot of shots and the ref stepping in, giving no time for an 8 count, no time for a 10 count, no time for anything. Floyd Mayweather landed a couple of shots, the ref stepped in. In hindsight, great for McGregor's brand. You don't want to see him getting KO'd. If he fights Tony Ferguson, Ferguson could submit him. Ferguson could also choose not to. Ferguson could also choose come the third round to do whatever he wants with McGregor, especially now that McGregor's coming in on short notice and he won't have the same conditioning as he normally would in a full camp. It worries me a little bit. It really does. Another thing I want to take into consideration here is how much better is Conor McGregor. He KO'd Donald Cerrone in 40 seconds. That's very good. But in terms of ring time and experience, doesn't cover much. Because the reality of the situation is, as I've said for the 10th time this fucking video for some bizarre reason, McGregor spent 40 seconds in a cage in about a year and a half. How much ring rust is that going to cure? Or does the 40 seconds prove that he didn't have ring rust in the first place? And that's up to the comments section below. Interesting stuff. I think McGregor would beat Tony Ferguson. You can't hold your chin like that. Listen, there's certain guys, you watch them and you know who beats them. Am I wrong? I feel like we can all agree on that at the end of this video. There's certain guys, you just watch them fight and you know what's going to happen. Ferguson's chin. You know. Ferguson at a young age of wrestling was told to reach for the stars. Ferguson didn't listen to that, but his chin did. Because that's all it does. It points right up to the sky, and if that happens against him versus McGregor, it's not going to be good. Cerrone outstruck Ferguson in the first round, and actually won the first round on the judges' scorecards. Just saying. Think about it. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. I'll see you later.